Prior to the release of Infinity War, it had been quite some time since we'd seen Captain America and Black Widow. What were the two of them up to since they broke away from the Avengers? Clearly, Captain America had time to grow that magnificent beard, but what else? We'll talk about how the relationship between these two characters has evolved over the years, and what this means for the upcoming Avengers Endgame. At the end of Captain America Civil War, Natasha Romanoff decided to stick with Steve Rogers, and the two of them rode off into the sunset. Okay, less rode off into the sunset and more went on the run to evade the Sokovia Accords, but you get the picture. Naturally, many fans wondered if the relationship between Natasha and Steve had progressed beyond being strictly platonic. Marvel Studios isn't always great at portraying romances, and Natasha's affections have been pretty unpredictable so far. But according to actors Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson, these two are just friends. We're sure Bucky Barnes is relieved to hear that. For those of you who were hoping for some romance in Avengers Endgame, first of all, now seems like a bad time to be looking for love. Scarlett Johansson has commented that romance would probably be the last thing on Natasha's mind after Civil War. There was simply no time for such pursuits, and that definitely hasn't changed going into Endgame. With the stakes at an all-time high and heroes at an all-time low, these two definitely have other things on their mind. Second of all, we're glad Marvel Studios is showing another example of a strong friendship without romantic undertones. According to Chris Evans, Captain America and Black Widow have a close working and personal relationship that is not romantic. He says, "There's a void that they each fill for each other, and they've each leaned on one another for different reasons." Although Captain America is a hero with the power of the super soldier serum at his disposal, Black Widow has been on active duty for a lot longer than he has. We don't exactly count those decades he spent frozen in ice towards his total superhero hours. Loyalty is absolutely essential for Steve Rogers, and in fact, it's one of his defining traits. Look at the loyalty he exhibits towards his best buddy Bucky Barnes, even when Bucky's trying to take him out of commission. This is a kind of genuine dedication Natasha hasn't seen a lot of in her life. It's easy to see how the personalities and life experiences of Black Widow and Captain America complement one another. There were some harsh lessons Steve learned by the end of Civil War, that even people you care about can let you down. Even just based on the two brief Endgame trailers we've seen so far, these facts about Black Widow and Captain America seem to be confirmed. We see Steve being pretty broken, from shedding tears to sitting in a support group for those who've lost loved ones in the decimation. Hey, even if you're a superhero, it's okay to cry. Or maybe he's just crying because he had to shave his beard. That made us pretty sad too. Anyway, it's clear Steve's at a low point. We see him staring wistfully at a photo of Peggy Carter, which he did during the movie Captain America: The First Avenger. You remember when he was piloting a plane filled with explosives into the Arctic on a suicide mission? Not his happiest moment, and many fans believe it's not a good omen that he's looking at this photo once again. But thankfully, Steve doesn't have to fight against Thanos alone. During one scene, we see Natasha reassuring Steve that their plan will work, while he says he doesn't know what he'll do if it doesn't. It's clear that while Captain America may be a powerful fighter, he still needs some emotional support and encouragement, and thankfully, Black Widow's there for him. With Tony Stark trapped up in outer space, the remaining heroes are going to need someone to take on the leadership position. Captain America has experience in this regard, so it seems likely he'll assume leadership over those who remain. While he'll most likely try to present a brave front, it's good that he has a friend to talk to and be vulnerable with. But we don't mean to make it sound as though Natasha and Steve have a completely one-sided friendship. Over the course of her time in the MCU, we've seen Natasha be vulnerable. While we hope to see more of her backstory in a eventual standalone movie, it's clear life hasn't always been easy for her. She's learned to keep her guard up, and it can be hard to let people in as well as remember the human element of her missions. Prior to Infinity War, Chris Evans pointed out that for many people, aliens pouring out of the sky is pretty much a worst-case scenario. We learned it traumatized Tony Stark during Age of Ultron, but it wasn't exactly fun for anyone else either. Well, Loki looked like he was having a good time up until he got smashed, but it's safe to say the majority of people did not enjoy it. The events of Infinity War made the Battle of New York look like child's play, and things are more grim and dire than ever as we head into Endgame. The stakes are higher than ever, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Cap, especially since he's now the leader of this group. In the trailer, it seems as though Black Widow has more than enough to keep her busy, even if she isn't the leader. We see her traveling to Japan in order to recruit Clint Barton, who seems to have traded in his Hawkeye persona for Ronin. During the time from Civil War to Infinity War, Captain America and Black Widow have spent a lot of time working together under some pretty intense circumstances. But not only are they now fighting against their greatest enemy yet, but the stakes are higher than ever, and undoubtedly, both of them are feeling the pressure. In the Super Bowl trailer, we saw Natasha keeping her skills sharp by practicing at a gun range. Not only is she undoubtedly going to struggle to fight against Thanos, but she may have more trouble than usual encouraging Steve to keep his unbearded chin up. He and Tony didn't exactly end things on the best of terms, although it was clear that both men still cared for one another. Things were strained, and both of them seemed to be ignoring a lot of issues surrounding their relationship. Not only are the Avengers missing a powerful member of their team, but Steve's most likely taking Tony's absence personally. It's clear that although the Avengers had fractured, Tony hadn't forgotten about Steve. During Spider-Man Homecoming, we heard Happy Hogan talking about moving the prototype for a new Captain America shield. Considering the last time we saw Captain America using his shield, he was beating Tony Stark with it, it's telling that Tony was actually making him a new one. Unless he made one which doesn't hurt as much, it seems as though Tony was looking forward to the day they'd continue on as friends. And we're guessing Steve feels the same. During the Super Bowl trailer, we saw Steve attaching a shield to his arm once more, but he appeared to be trembling while doing so. Needless to say, it takes a lot to physically bring down Captain America, so is it possible that he's shaking from nerves, sadness, or an unpleasant combination of both? We know they're close, but is this the kind of pain Black Widow can really help with? And let's not forget that many fans think this may be Captain America's final fight. The character has been in the MCU for a very long time, and Chris Evans has said he'd rather give up the role before people got tired of seeing him. There are rumors that his Marvel movie contract will be up at the end of Endgame, and Evans has made some statements on social media which seem to indicate he could be saying goodbye. Sacrifice was a huge theme during Infinity War, and Steve was the one who said, "We don't trade lives." During Captain America: The First Avenger, we saw him attempt to make the ultimate sacrifice when he thought it was for the greater good. Don't forget, when he piloted that plane into the Arctic, he didn't think he was going to survive. He was doing what he had to in order to protect other people, and he did so without a second thought. Would we really expect him to behave any differently during Endgame? One of Captain America's defining characteristics is his unwavering dedication to doing what he feels is right. If the opportunity to trade his own life for someone else's arose, we don't think there's any way he wouldn't take it. There are lots of moments in any battle where heroes risk their own lives. That's kind of the defining characteristic of a superhero. Not only is this a particularly dangerous fight, it also involves the Soul Stone. The Infinity Stones are a lot more than super powerful celestial rocks. They're actually sentient beings. They can choose who's worthy of possessing them, which is a lesson the Red Skull learned the hard way. Rejection always hurts, but it hurts a lot worse when you're rejected by an Infinity Stone and sent to serve another one for decades. You think the Soul Stone made the Red Skull wear that creepy cloak, or was that his own stylistic choice? Hopefully, this is one of the many important questions which will be answered during Avengers Endgame. One popular theory is that our heroes are going to go back in time in order to collect the Infinity Stones and stop the decimation from ever happening. But how are they going to get their hands on the Soul Stone? We all saw what Thanos had to do in order to obtain it during Infinity War, and it wasn't pretty. It doesn't seem crazy to assume that the Soul Stone will require a sacrifice if our heroes want to claim it. And we don't think Steve would let just anyone else volunteer. Would he then have to take his own life in order for his fellow heroes to gain the Soul Stone? Or could a far more heartbreaking situation occurred? Thanos had to sacrifice someone he loved in order to take possession of the Soul Stone, so that could mean someone who loves Steve Rogers may need to sacrifice him. Although they aren't in a romantic relationship, there's definitely a strong bond between Steve and Natasha. While most of us think Steve has been on the run since Civil War, the truth is that he's been running for much longer. He was ready to meet his end once, and may feel as though he's on borrowed time. It's kind of like when the story ends and you're on to the epilogue. Finding himself in another time has been traumatic, and it's clear he struggled to fit in. Despite all that he's done and all the people he's met, he still finds himself looking at a photo of Peggy Carter. While Peggy was an amazing person who he had feelings for, we don't think this is just him missing his ex. It seems as though he wishes he could go back to his old life and the time in which he used to live, and Peggy is the ultimate representation of that. If anything, we'd think Natasha would be able to understand this about Steve more than anyone else. She isn't afraid to do the tough things in order to get the job done, but this may be her biggest challenge yet. Would she be able to do what needs to be done in order to save the world if it comes down to sacrificing Steve Rogers? We may very well find out in Avengers Endgame. After hearing what we think, what do you think the roles of Captain America and Black Widow are going to be in Endgame? Will they become more than just friends? Share your predictions with us in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more of those sweet, sweet MCU videos. Thanks for watching.